Treasurer Mike Erickson.
Here.
Clerk Duncan's not here. And Leo Henkelman.
Present.
Okay, we'll put that down.
That is trustee though, right?
Yes. No, I don't know. What do you want to call it?
Just checking. I mean,
I'll
you
say,
called
so
the other
since
two guys
we're,
trustee, but you didn't me, so.
I'm sorry. That's written down that way in front of me. She didn't have it here. So what we're going to do now, go ahead and say the Pledge of Allegiance right on there, and Pledge Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we start these formalities here on what we're going to run down through here, we'd like to go ahead and read an oath to Leo Henkelman. Do you have the oath?
I don't have an oath with me.
I think I have it.
If you've got one
I
with
think I have.
you.
There it is right there. Right there it is.
Okay, you've got
Yeah,
it with
I got
you.
mine. That's all I need to do is read it off to him.
Okay,
Hey, I'm with you.
Okay, Leo, I
wait a
do
minute.
solemnly swear
I, Leo Henkelman, do solemnly swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United
the
States
Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of
and
Illinois.
that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of,
I will safely discharge the duties of the office of trustee
to the best of my
to
ability.
the best of my ability.
You're officially sworn in. Thank you. We have that recorded there.
Congratulations, Trustee Henkelman.
Congratulations. We have a guest over here, one of our neighbors here.
How's it going?
Good. We had a few things to talk about here tonight that we're dealing with as we move forward. One of them is our appropriations ordinance. I'm not sure if everybody understands what that is here. You guys are new. I know that Chad knows what the appropriation is. We have to appropriate the correct amount that we send in. These numbers are a little off from what we're calculating. Not way off, but they're off. So the salary is, since the salaries have raised, you now get $50, Leo, and I think you guys both get $50. I'm staying the same at 200, and I think Mike said to 175.
Yeah, I believe it's,
I've
55.
added everything up.
Trustees get.
I added everything up to that, times 12, it comes out 10,500. So it is all, that's with meetings too, so if you have meetings once a month. So we have to appropriate the right amount. I'd like to go ahead and add 1,000 of that, and take it off something else. If that's acceptable.
How much is a meeting per?
10. It was stuck in
All
there.
right, yeah, no, and that's fine. I just wanted to make sure you weren't shorting yourself by.
Yeah, well, we're at
Well, I mean, if
50.
you had everybody show up 6 times 1272.
No, but that's just.
So that's $720.
We had more meetings.
We're at
That's
two
right.
different.
Right.
And I don't get meetings, you don't get meetings.
We're at two different fees. We're at 55 for 3,
Oh, is it?
But-
and we're at 30 for the other 3 right now. The ones who are currently in office.
But if you have a committee meeting,
Yes,
all the individuals show up for.
yes,
That's
All
$10 a
trustees
piece.
correct.
$10.
That's another
That's-
$10. Yes,
That's
that's correct.
still-
$720
Yes,
a year,
that's
so.
Still on the pay
That's
ordinance.
correct, yes.
Okay, all right,
So we
I
should
got it.
move that salary up. Clerk Duncan was complaining about it back a month ago, and I said, we'll have to move it up. We got till June 30th.
$1,000 to cover it, it sounds like.
Right.
Okay.
We have until June
Yeah.
30th to resubmit this form to the county.
All right, if I can make a suggestion here on that, if that's what you're looking to do. Looking at this, the Henry County Disaster Unit disbanded about 4 years ago.
Yes, it did.
We have $1,200 there for them, which will never be used. It's defunct. So
Where's
that's
that at,
something
Mike?
that can be, that's something that can
With
be
the flood or
changed.
what?
No, the Henry County
No, that
Disaster
was a
Unit.
different entity altogether, and they
Oh.
merged with the.
Long story
emergency disaster
short,
services.
it was, each community puts in every year so much money. All right, that pool of money is used then for any member state that has a disaster, or a what have you. But it doesn't matter, they were disbanded maybe 5 years ago, so that money can't be there. Well, I won't say can't be there, it can be there, but it'll never
Must
be
be
used.
allocated somewhere else.
That's a silly line to have because it'll never be used.
Right.
And if I might,
Move
this
that over to the salaries and just be done with it.
Yeah, well, this appropriations ordinance is just a wish list.
Yep.
is all it amounts
Always
to.
has been.
But if we're off,
Yeah.
when we send it in, then
Yes.
then
Yes.
start
Correct.
bouncing it back and saying, you're
correct.
bad boys.
If we're below what we spend, it's not a problem. If we're above what we spend, then we've got to, then we
Right.
have to get approval from the state and so on to change that ordinance. So anything you put on here, you know, we have to be within it. And I know in a bunch of these categories, Shauna was telling me that she had to do some, and I'm going to call it creative.
She handed out a list of updates.
Yeah, we're close on some of those, and what I hope to do is continue that, keeping the
Jimmy, we've already
categories, keeping the categories where everybody has an idea of how close we are and what, you know, what categories we're in. But,
So what's your suggestion on the disaster fund?
I'm sorry?
What's your suggestion?
Okay,
Just leave it alone, or?
you know, Leo has said, move the disaster fund to that salary,
Yeah.
and you're good.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have a suggestion, I'm just telling you,
Just a suggestion. I mean,
That the money's there.
Rick suggested 1,000. If we just
Right.
remove the Henry County Disaster Unit from there.
And put it right up there.
Move it up to that, then
Right.
that should cover us for anything that we've got for salaries.
exactly.
You writing that down here, what we're gonna do here, okay, that's fine. Moving down real quickly, these other items that go to that professional services could be, more than 3,000 as well. We're going that, over that with Graham Lee. It's up to you guys what you wanna do with that. I am not too concerned about it right at the moment. Insurance is 5,000, we paid over 6,000 last year, that number is off. Last November, there was a $6,000 bill.
Was there?
Yeah, so
That
5,000.
was for the
Insurance,
IML?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's off.
Okay.
Contributions, what was contributions?
Contributions usually something we give to the food pantries and things like
Okay.
that.
Food pantry, they'll ask for a Thanksgiving
VFW.
baskets, they ask for Christmas donation
The
to
fire department,
fire department.
they have a little fundraiser where they hand out money to the, or gifts, I should say.
Right.
So, okay.
The buildings and grounds, that's the same every year, is 35,000. I think Jimmy's here, that's always been 35,000. We never spend that, of course. Rock River fundraiser, that we asked to do the fundraiser this year, so we're planning on doing that. $5,000 for spending. We never had any spending on it when we first did this. And so we made it 15,000. So somewhere there was a 1 dropped off of that. The reason we had to do that is because the county bounced it back and said you are having to pay out in order to make money for the park fund. So we made it 15. So that was one line item that it could be corrected. The equipment also, that we're moving down into equipment, that the $65,000 is not appropriate at what it used to be. Yeah, I don't know what it used to be,
Have
Jimmy.
you seen the equipment?
Equipment says 65,000 is what I have here, and that's not appropriate. We're going to spend for equipment. We would like to get another tractor. So that's on this agenda item.
I showed it on the first page.
It was on the first page of
Yeah.
equipment.
Oh, I
It
see.
appropriated
Okay.
$65,000,
Okay. I see.
and that was, so you were going to buy some backhoe or something, you want to give us
Oh, you mean on the old one?
the one that's been submitted.
This is.
Oh, okay, all right, because I guess I'm looking at the one that you've got here, so.
Yeah, that, and I'm
Yeah,
looking at
okay.
the same thing.
Okay,
Now, the
so-
one that's in this folder is different than the one that you've got
Well,
there.
Shauna gave me this, and we had it in a
Oh.
packet here. so-
Well, let me make right quick a copy of what everybody else is looking at here, so you're looking at the same thing that everybody else is looking
Oh,
at.
well, he didn't have a packet, so
No, I know.
$65,000 was on the appropriations ordinance in 3/5/15, so there was
Yeah, I think there was
never
discussion about a loader backhoe type
tobacco,
scenario.
that never happened.
No.
And then, giving everybody a heads up, the equipment that was sold would accept tobacco when we first bought it. Might have been before you even come back in. We bought that tractor to accept tobacco on the back of it. And now it's not here, so we would like to enter into those types of, we need a little equipment, in other words, our equipment's gone, except for the Z-Track. That's not running right, by the way. The Z-Track, it's just smoking like hell when it starts up. I don't have any idea. I had none, and Mike's been driving it, and next thing you know, you start it up, and the whole garage is full of blue smoke, just bad. And I don't know what else to do about it, but I asked them to come look at it after the next cycle of mowing.
You're just gonna make it through another cycle?
Okay, so if you got problems with it, I would not be running it if you got
It'd be catastrophic.
out.
Okay, well, I'm gonna write that down because we gotta get a hold of them.
Sounds like it's burning oil.
It is.
Blue.
It was
And
a diesel, right?
it's a diesel, but
Yeah.
it's not abnormal to see a bunch of smoke.
Well,
I'll put that down.
blue and or
before.
white isn't good.
Call for
Mine might
service,
show a little puff of black when I first started
and
up.
have them
but
replace the
never
tractor
seen anything
to
coming
mow.
out of it since.
so you want me to call for service and have her replace the tractor to mow?
How's that work? They replace it?
They'll put another one here for you so you can keep mowing.
Okay, so
They
they
did
give
it
us
a year
rental,
ago,
or
so
is this an
I remember
exchange?
Waterman had a problem, and they put another one down here. We can't do without the mower, we need to get going on it again, so, we'll call them tomorrow. Let's see, call for service. The other things too, I saw the police fund at $12,000, we're only gonna spend $7,200 on that. I don't know why it's 12,000, does anybody have a clue?
No, they were billing us for extra rides and
Donnie?
talking about overtime and courts and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that was some of it. There were other things.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, if you wanna leave it there, I don't have a problem with it, I mean.
Well, that was part of the agreement that we had with them. In fact, I think it's probably
I know
still in the
it is,
contract.
but the contract's expired, so we're gonna talk a little bit about that tonight. I've been contacted by them or with them, and,
So if I hear you correctly, you're saying that if a police officer is called to a specific house,
On multiple occasions.
Oh,
They
okay.
they actually had some, what it came down to is any time that they had to do court duty, we would be charged overtime for those incidents.
Right, that's time and a half.
Okay.
For that, it's also, with the new police contract, now they've got to have, they get considerably more because they have to, because of the insurance and so on. Anytime that they're on, anytime they have to go to court for anything that's related to Cleveland, we pay the officer time and a half at his regular rate. And that regular rate is considerably higher because of the insurance and yada, yada, yada.
and somehow court appearances with Donnie and these guys, I guess we gotta pay for some of that too.
We do.
Just leave it, I guess, it ain't that big a deal. Mosquito spraying, we're gonna talk about that, so that could be changed as we talk about it, as we move forward into, the contract. We do have a contract in front of us to agree with. So those line items we went through rather quickly, and we can recalc and resend this to the county, June 4th, is what I'm proposing. We don't have to vote on anything tonight. Whatever we just talked about here, does that make sense to you guys, or you wanna vote on something this evening, or?
I don't see why
We're
we
just
need
moving
to.
numbers around,
Yeah,
and we can
If you get
still,
something that's close, we can all come to a somewhat, I guess, agreement. We don't have to necessarily vote on it, but if we're all in agreement,
right,
then it's
well,
just
we
a matter
know,
of
we know
formalizing
where
it.
those numbers needs to
Right.
find their way through. So once we
Well, you're not
find,
gonna change the street fund, and if I'm understanding you, Mike, the audit fund, you're saying that there's a way that the village could literally do this online without any expense to the village?
Yes, that's correct.
yes,
Yes, that's correct.
once you have the right numbers in place, you comptroller PIN number, and then put it in there.
You know, and I'm not trying to gainsay anything, but sometimes the second source isn't a bad way to handle things, you
No,
know?
absolutely.
I'm just saying from the,
We've done it forever.
Well,
it's always,
if I understood you right, $400 is what he charges?
Yes, that's what Mr.
So I mean, if we
Clark
drop that in
charges.
half or drop it by 1,000, that gives us some extra money to play
That's-
with there. and
that's
that would-
something that makes
I would
sense.
rather do something like that in
keep
the
it there.
event that,
yeah, keep it
Yes.
there,
right,
all right?
Yes,
you know, rather than have nothing there at all.
Before we
at
get
least give
into
us
Right.
something.
The $500 anyway, to where, yeah, if something does go south or it's, we
Well,
have to go in on it.
I mean, I guess I just, like I said, just looking at it from the standpoint of second set of eyes sometimes is good to have.
Yep, agreed.
okay, we have mosquito here too, so before
Yeah,
we.
tell me about what you got for a different
Well,
contract.
That's on down here below this.
Well, that's fine.
Let's go ahead and talk to Jim, and Linda White came over here tonight to talk to us about their continuing dilemma. Jim, you're up. You want to talk?
Well, you asked me to come down to talk about
Yeah, well, I vetoed the disconnect,
the
so.
disconnect. Obviously, everybody knows that when these young fellows here, the board voted on us to de-annex on April 22. So I have a copy of that de-annexation in case anybody needed to see anything of it. I think probably more than anything, the mayor vetoed that vote. So that puts the village in a position where you're either gonna have somebody the board override the veto, or the mayor, you can stay with it, you can fight it or not fight it. I guess our position on it is, I appreciate the fact, I guess, that the mayor would veto it, and want to know why it is that we wanted to de-annex, and give us the chance to speak, because over the last 2 years, we haven't had that chance. So, like I said, let Linda start with second, let her give
Yeah,
some
we'd
of the
appreciate it,
reasons.
I'm really, because it was.
I think what our wishes are is that we continue in the direction of de-annexing.
Yep.
Rather than, and I guess I would ask you that, whether it would be a case of you withdrawing your veto or the board overriding the veto or whatever you got to do that, but just allow Linda to speak for a couple minutes to tell her reasons why we want to de-annex.
We've been harassed by the board members. The ex-mayor came down, the whatever Ballager was, came down, harassed us when we were putting up a pole building. Miss Krogman, when my brother died, she came down the day after we buried him and was down there trying to take pictures at the end of our driveway. Really? Being harassed is ridiculous, especially when you've lost somebody.
Yeah.
She got caught doing it too.
Right. Well,
We weren't doing anything that we did not have paperwork for down there on that building. They came down there, Ballager came down there and stuck this big pink paper on our building trying to stop us from building it. Then he's taking pictures of my grandson. And we called the Kelowna cops and told them what he did. They did nothing. I want them pictures. He had no right taking pictures of a 7-year-old. What's he doing with them pictures? You see all that?
we don't have any idea why they're acting like that, so.
Well, I know you don't, but just let her finish.
I'm tired of being harassed. We have done nothing. We have not stolen any money. We were accused when he was the mayor of stealing money.
Right.
We were accused of the river of stealing money. Stealing the money that was going for the honor flight. I can't believe people would say stuff like that. I don't want any part of this town anymore. It's not that I've lived here all my life. My parents have lived here all their life. They cannot believe the stuff that's going on.
Right.
I don't care anymore. I want out.
I can tell you when it started is when I didn't reappoint Lisa Sides to be the clerk and treasurer. All hell broke loose then. Stories and lies and all kinds of manifestations of lies started coming from the Sides house and Ballager's house I'll be right blunt with you, I know where it came from. They've been around, they've told everybody all kinds of different stories. You got Sherry Krogman to believe in all the shit that they created. That we stole this, we did this, we took this, we took that. I was never given an opportunity to meet with a building inspector with this village board and this council to talk about the building that I was putting up. Instead, several people went around and called the building inspector. They didn't like what he said, so they fired him. They got another building inspector. They had a meeting with him and Gary Sides, but I wasn't invited to that either. And I had all the paper. I had all the paperwork. I did all the work that I needed to do up there. I did that in 2011 and 2012. All I needed to do, anybody needed to do was call me up and ask me. I would have been more than happy to bring all the stuff down, explain everything that I did, explain everything that John Malmstrom knew, what John Malmstrom told me. John Malmstrom wouldn't give me a building permit. I asked him 3 times. John, give me a building permit because when I leave, they're going to harass me. I know they are. I'm not going to give you one, he said, because you're farm exempt. I said, but John, just give me a building permit anyway. I want to pay the money, I want to get a permit. I want this shit behind me because I know what they're going to do. He said, you don't need one. I said, but John, yeah, I do need one because we're in the village of Cleveland. He argued with me, so I said, okay, just never mind, let's not argue. But I thought if the new board would have called him and called me at the same time, they could have explained to him. He would have said, okay, well then get a building permit. But that never happened. Instead, they worked with Gary Sides and worked behind my back, did a lot of different things, and the fight still continues. We don't speak to Gary and Lisa Sides. They've done stupid things, like Lisa has told my daughter that I had an affair with. She convinced her. She made the story so convincing that my daughter came to our house, was screaming and crying, and wanted to beat my ass because I had an affair with a woman.
On top of the hill that
On top of the hill.
didn't live
That
there.
didn't live there anymore. That's how convincing those lying people are. And that's how evil they are, that I guess I would want to say that their jealousy or their hatred towards us, because I didn't reappoint her to be clerk and treasurer, they've spread all this crap.
And that's how this town is so screwed up because of this.
We don't have Christmas, birthdays, shit in the Larson family anymore either.
My brother
Because of those two right there on the end of Maple Street.
told me
I'll tell
that
you guys that.
my sister-in-law and my brother told me that when they went out with them, Gary said, I don't care what you do to Jim and Linda White, just don't hurt the town.
Yeah.
And look what they've done to this
Yeah.
town.
They don't care about nothing. They care about nothing but themselves. They're selfish people. Anyway, Gary's on the board. I'm happy for him. I want them to have this whole town, and we don't plan on being
I want out.
in, and that's basically our bottom line.
Can I ask just a question here for a second? Because
Go ahead, Tim.
I'm not quite understanding, because I thought that the paperwork's already been sent through the court and that you are disconnected from the village.
It's veto.
According to this paperwork, yes.
Okay, so what's the issue?
The veto changes.
There was a
What-
veto at the last meeting, where Gary Sides didn't show up because he used his
So-
authority
So you
again.
vetoed? Okay.
He vetoed.
And so then if I'm understanding right, all you'd need to do would be to rescind your veto?
I don't plan on doing that.
Or it would have to be overridden by the board. The board can override his
Why
veto.
would you not want to do that if they want to?
It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I think he wanted some time to think about it.
Yeah, but they're just in here now, what, 3 weeks later, 2 weeks later, and
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just asking questions, guys.
Right.
Well,
Just
you,
asking
Village of
questions.
Cleveland exists
If-
what it is
if you
without
want
bickering
to
and fighting with family members.
Move on,
Right,
How is this going to
convince
solve the
him,
problem?
because
yeah.
I'm not,
How is this going to solve the
I
problem?
don't understand why you're being the way you are.
How's it going to solve the problem? Because it's not.
Well, what I
Well,
asked.
certainly solves their problem, they're the ones that are in here petitioning the board to follow through.
I'll vote for that.
Well, I petitioned you guys for 16 months
And-
too, you know?
and-
You know, and we won't get into that because that just lingered on and on and on until the last minute. And personally, I think it was nothing but more than a game. But that's just my opinion.
Yep.
You know, so
And
my opinion's like
And
everybody's got.
in the end, you got what you asked for. Unfortunately, it took a lot longer than you wanted it to.
Yeah.
But apparently that's what they want, so again, I'm asking the question.
I'm not gonna change my mind, so you'll have to override the veto.
I don't care. I mean, the whole thing comes back to the citizen wants to have that piece of paper upheld.
Right. And then this one up here gets disconnect up here, and then the next thing you know, it's all fell apart.
Well, you know what, maybe it's a pattern and a trend that we all have
That's not
to
the
pay
mayor's job, is
attention
to let
to.
everything disconnect just because
Well-
it gets it tight, so.
Leo, I'd ask you a question too. 16 months, why did it take so long for them to make up their mind?
I really don't know, Jim, because there were several things that I asked questions about, including the reasons why we shouldn't allow you to. One of them was financially. And so we asked a question and we sent that back to the lawyers and the questions came back and forth, and you know what? It wasn't worth it anymore because we were gonna end up expending more money trying to resolve this than it was worth. So the decision was made that we should proceed with this.
Well, we'll leave it at that.
And you guys got something to say there, James?
Well, from the financial standpoint of the community, I think I heard numbers a while back that it would be from the taxes standpoint, a rough guess was,
$270 a year, if I remember.
Yeah.
Right.
219.
With the head count, it comes to 1,000.
yeah, I was gonna say around 1,100, but something like that.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah, if you had the census tax
I'd say if you did-
appropriation for the motor fuel and all
Over the
that.
next 20 years.
Yeah, okay, all right.
And the census will take place in 2020. So not between now and 2020, there won't be any difference in numbers for population.
So, again.
So from my standpoint, the only thing would be that we're losing an asset, we're losing a portion of
Yes.
it.
Well, and-
But is that portion enough?
And again, that was my, I guess, reason why we wanted to at least contest it to start out with.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to vent just a little bit, just to tell all you people, including you, about our favorite little family members down there at the end of Maple Street, because I know you visit with them a lot.
This
And they
fellow's
come
from
visit
Maple
you.
Street.
And I know I haven't been allowed that opportunity the last 4 years. So now you know what we think about them, and of course, you already know what they think about us. So,
I'll tell you the same thing I told him one time, and my wife actually said it. I'm not gonna not talk to somebody in this village just because somebody else doesn't like somebody else.
it
Well-
doesn't seem like you actually do that, because when I drive by you, you don't want to speak to me. Now, you're speaking now, because you're in a meeting. Well, out on the street, on the road, when I drive by, it's like, that's it, don't be coming any closer to me, Jim White. I know how you are, Leo, so go ahead.
You're trying to read his mind.
It's all right.
The childish clicks need to stop, and so does the harassment of people that
The
live
harassment
here.
and the childishness.
It's all games. Anyway, so that's where we're at, so we said what we wanted to say.
We understand.
And I could go on and on and on.
I've been in the middle of all of it too, and I know exactly where you come from. But from the village's standpoint, it is not in the best interest of the village to disconnect anything. It's in the best interest of the village to connect.
Okay.
So that's my opinion, so that's where I'm standing with that. We'll talk about that at the next meeting.
All right.
And then
Okay. Well, we're gonna go, and thank you for.
We do
your time.
appreciate you coming down here and telling us this tonight, but I still am standing firm on it.
Thank you, Leo.
You're welcome, Jim.
Yeah.
Hey, what about me? You're welcome. I guess my opinion is it's not gonna solve anything by disconnecting that portion right
It wasn't
there.
solving anything, it's what the man asked for.
I understand that, but it's
That's
not
what the
in
man
the
asked
best
for.
interest of the village of Cleveland. That's what we're supposed to be doing, not in the best interest of
And
the
that was
white.
why we initially contested it, but, you know, hey, in the end,
The village.
let him go, that's what he wants.
I understand that. But what happens is we'll go, the next thing you know, it's annexed down here and he's gotta go back again.
Maybe if there's enough people to think that, maybe we don't deserve to be a village.
My answer is no, so if you want to override the veto, you can do that. So, we'll do that here the next month if you want to. Then I won't be to blame if you de-annex the damn thing. Moving on to CD, August CD is 168,000 roughly.
Okay, in the page in the middle that you've got here, there's a page that's got Blackhawk on top of it. It has the figures for the large CD, 168,000. The second one is the small CD, which is 57.6. Page just before that tells you that I got a hold of the bank and I said, okay, we're looking at.
What you looking at?
Okay,
have it.
Over here.
No, it's in here.
This page, and then the page just behind it is where all your figures are for the CDs. I got a hold of the bank and I said, okay, we're looking at, or they're looking at taking some money out of a CD, tell me about penalty and so on. The mayor asked me to do that. And I was told at the bank exactly that. For a 12-month CD, which both of ours are, the penalty for early withdrawal or additions, and I was not aware there was a penalty for adding money to it, but there is, in part or in full, is 90 days interest. So it's 90 days interest on the CD, regardless of whether you add, take out, whatever you do. What that shows then on the next page, and on that page, as a matter of fact, on that page there shows for the large CD, the most recent quarter, we got $265.85 interest. On the small CD, we got $105.17. That one has increased. We signed on at a 0.6, I believe. And we're now, I'm sorry, on the small one, we signed on at 0.7. We're now getting 0.75, which is not a gigantic difference.
Not even 1%.
However, it's still, we get the benefit of the increase. It does not hurt us. We're guaranteed 7. If it goes up, we get the benefit of going up. If it goes down, we can't go below 7. But the point of that whole thing is that if you're looking at doing a CD, if you're looking at withdrawing any of that for a portion of that to buy whatever you're going to buy, it makes better fiscal sense to take it from the small CD, which is not due until next February. Your hit there is $105.
Oh, and when you talk about buying equipment?
Yeah, if you take it from the larger CD, your hit is $265. So if you're going to withdraw money from either of them, it makes fiscal sense to do the small one as opposed to the large one.
Well, you're
even
also
though,
going to lose money on the fact that you're not getting interest from what you don't have in there anymore either.
correct,
Not much.
correct. So it's,
You ain't getting much now.
Yeah.
Well, I understand
Yeah.
that, but if you're going to calculate dollars and cents.
But regardless,
it's-
that's what I'm looking at is dollars and cents. And Leo, thank you, because that, that was something that I had
Paid
not.
interest out for $400 last year and you dropped that thing in half.
But then
it's
if you,
not just $105, it's $305.
but if you want to look at the other side of it, and you went and bought a piece of equipment now with the rate of inflation right now,
There you go.
there's
I'm just-
you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
It
right.
ain't going to be cheaper next year.
Yeah.
We'd like to get some equipment, so.
All right, well, and that's what I'm doing is providing, here are the numbers on both of the CDs on this page.
Understood.
The
I hear
total,
what you're saying.
the total, everything that you have available to you is the page behind that. This is printed from the bank statement today, so that will tell you that as of this moment today, you have $308,728.31.
So this money that would be withdrawn from this CD would be only used for purchase of equipment. It's not going to the
That's the
general fund,
intent.
it's gonna go into the appropriations ordinance as purchase of equipment.
Okay, that's up to you.
I'm
Yeah,
asking
no,
the
that's,
question.
that's up
that was the
to you,
intent.
Yeah.
gentlemen.
That
What-
would be the only-
Run a tractor back with the backhoe attached.
So, where are you coming up with the 15,000 for the Rock the River then?
Well, that was a fictitious number, we never.
We're not- And I'm just asking that then, because I mean, if we're gonna, kind of bounce around here a little bit, which we have
The
been.
Rock the River fundraiser, in the early years, never had a line item to spend, and then they.
No, it was always funded by itself, which was through sponsorship and
Well, the early years of Rock the River was funded by the village for the first 3 years. The village matched all funds to be able to build a pavilion.
Okay.
And village.
Yeah, well, after the fact, yes, but the actual funds to throw
Yeah,
party.
that was, the first years came from the village, and the first 3 years came from the village.
So they set up the capital in order for us to make some money to not have the village pay
Still there,
for
though.
it.
See, it's in the park fund for
Yep.
the event, because there's $2,400 left in there, whatever the hell it is. That was simple startup and funding, which we left in there to start up another one, since we haven't had one in 4 years. So there's a lot of demand for it, so if we get that, the only reason that this was 5,000, it should be, closer to 10. Because when we pay a band, we pay for the beer, which is 5,000, da-da-da, adds
Well,
up.
that was the other part of it too. You guys didn't have to come up with money for beer up front either.
No, but we had to show the expenditure. We had to go, okay, here's $5,500 of beer. We never had it. We had to show that we spent it. Then you know what I mean? Then it was
I know what you're
kind of
talking
a rubber check. Then on Monday, when the money went in there from selling it, it was a pretty cool deal. Well, we had to show those expenditures so that's why they drove it up to 15,000. I think Gary was the one that drove it up in there. He's saying we need to put that a little higher,
For the park fund itself.
just to spending expenses. So the park fund it has to go with whatever we're doing.
Well, we had close to $20-some thousand in the park fund until we bought the.
Yeah, about that one, right, it was 17.
So, I mean, that was,
18,000.
Right, but that went
that's
into.
what it was for.
That went into buildings and grounds, see, so we were able to do that. That was quite a bit there, but we spent that for buildings and grounds to do that. That's how all that shit worked there, when it all flowed through. Expenditure line items, when I was printing them up there, those line items are real important, because when they look at that, they'll say, okay, your line items are, and Mike will tell you the same thing, your line item.
So again, I guess I'm just asking a question. You guys want to cash in a CD. What are you going to use the money for?
Tractor.
Okay, so you're going to put it on the appropriations ordinance as an equipment expenditure for the amount that you want to cash the CD in.
The equipment you show here is 65,000. I don't know.
No.
We ain't spending that much.
The appropriation, yeah. No, we're not gonna spend $65,000.
Thank you.
It's closer to 25 or 30.
That's why I'm asking questions, fellas.
Closer to 25 or 30 to get that,
So maybe
get
we
that
ought to
equipment
reduce
back.
that 65 down then.
Right, well, it's there.
I mean, I don't know what we would spend $65,000 on equipment for.
That was what you guys all did.
I don't argue that point,
I
right?
was surprised.
I am not saying that I was 100% behind all the stuff that was going on there either, okay?
Well, then, you can leave that number there
You'd spend
and
less.
then not spend that. I wasn't planning, we weren't
Yeah.
figuring on spending that much.
We ain't buying tobacco.
If
I'm taking back on 80,000.
If
Yeah.
the appropriations ordinance is going to be changed, then, there's an area where you can take out of that and increase others. Because when you end up you're at 134,000 something for the appropriations
Well,
ordinance.
for starters, we're not bringing in that kind of income anyway, so I mean.
No.
to bring it a little bit more factual.
Well, what it.
I know, it's a magical number.
Yeah, it's just a magic number anyway. But the point is that if you go over that 135,000, then it shows up in the paper as Cleveland increases there, and your phone's going to ring off the wall. So it makes more sense
I would
to
rather
take
see us
it
lower it myself.
from an
I thought
area
so
and
too,
move it
but
to something else.
The reason it started going up was because after 2 or 3 Rock the Rivers, we were matching funds, we were spending, the one year was like 78,000, we spent 90,000, put the boat ramp and everything else in there, and they got a hold of it.
And there are good reasons for that. That's why we were doing it to start out with.
Right, but we had to re-amend the appropriations ordinance the first 3 years, and it drove itself up into that, which was surprisingly high.
Just because I'd like to clear a couple minor things up here. Okay, if we move the mosquito spray fund, is there a number that you've been given?
Yeah, we have that.
Because I mean, that's something on the,
It's $97 an application. Do you have that in front of you?
Yeah, I saw that, 97.
So,
We can move to that real quickly because we're right on it.
So how many, we're gonna spray from what time to what time? I mean, June till end of September?
I would say that's reasonable, yeah. So you're looking
Up
at
to you
June,
guys.
July, August.
'Cause I calculated it out to-
4, 16,
Yeah, here, you need to see this.
about $1,600.
This was
Just
Country
little
math.
figures.
$97 an app, and this is what they.
But that's
said.
only once a week doing that. And a lot of times, I think it depends on how much water we get around here. We might
Right.
want to do it a couple times.
Well, at $97, I
97.
calculate out we get 25 shots at it, or 25 weeks of it,
25 shots.
25 actual
Times
applications.
12, something like that. So you've got 3 months is 12 weeks. A lot of times they were coming down here twice a week. So they get bad, and they're not
Yeah,
bad.
oh, yeah, and
They're
they're
not bad yet.
Well, and that's why I'm saying, I mean, we didn't get the flood this year. So.
Not yet, anyway, no.
Well, and, let's,
Knock on wood. But that flooding does cause a lot of
oh,
mosquitoes.
damn straight it does.
So,
I still got pucks in the garage for them puddles out there in the backyard.
we're doing whatever we can to keep some of the weeds down. In the meantime, we do have to get this up on front in June 4th to get this voted on.
Well, okay, and so again, I guess I'm asking the question, if we're gonna adjust something, I would rather see us adjust this to something along the lines of like $3,600 and be under
Yeah,
than go over.
if that's all
Because
right
that'd
with
be
you guys, I
doing
don't have a problem
six
with that.
Fine with me.
applications in,
Because the
if you
application,
did that in, 12 weeks, that's 3 times a week.
I
But,
live down
you
here-
stretch it out,
I
then,
live down by the river,
Yeah.
and 1 year it was flooded at Labor Day.
Just shy of 40 applications. That'll
see,
be all
and,
right.
and the way I'm looking at it, you guys wanna do the Rocket River thing, we may want them to come down here and not just do an application in the village itself, but down there on the
Yeah, right,
riverbank and.
right.
For the campers.
Right, exactly.
Right.
So,
To help out.
again, just a suggestion,
Applications are 97, was almost $100 each.
Yep.
And we gotta agree on what we're gonna do and when we're gonna do it by June 4th, so that's why we're here. So we'll be voting on that contract here.
Yep.
And so if you guys are all agree to that, we'll have to tell them the territory that we want them to spray at by that time.
Now-
They're asking for that in this thing here.
Yeah, now, is this the same sprayer company that was spraying before, or are you going with a different one?
This is Clone.
Yeah,
Clone
okay.
of the same
And they
one?
have-
Right, and then I would
License.
ask you specifically to ride with him like the first time.
Yes, he
Because,
doesn't do 90 miles.
well, and not only that.
You've been
but
down
he
there when they're
skips-
spraying?
But he
Yeah.
It's
skips
hardly
streets.
nothing.
Yes, he does.
And doesn't,
Streets, yeah.
that-
Okay,
that's right.
okay.
Because on multiple occasions, I've watched him run down Broadway and not even bother coming through Jackson Street
Okay,
at all.
well then, once we get the.
Because we do have side streets that he needs to run through, the whole shooting match, I'm sure.
Then I'll go
Oh,
down and
I
talk-
saw him do like he says.
Yep,
If he's a speed limit, all you see is a trail.
yep.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, an hour
Just-
after he goes by, you go out there and the skeeters are chewing on you.
so just a suggestion, so that he understands.
Well,
Didn't
keep
do
in mind, it's
nothing.
not intended to totally 100% eradicate them.
No,
It's just
and I'm not.
Beat 'em
knock
down.
them down.
But
Yeah.
at
Keeps
least
them
it's
nailed
something
down,
that
yeah.
he could at least slow down and hit all the streets.
Well, I remember the old fogger truck that came through and you couldn't see across the street. I'm sure the
And-
EPA put an end to that.
Well, we used to play in it when we were kids, so.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, blow
Okay,
right.
so we're wanting to go with $97 an app to $3,600 and
And-
maximum allowed, right?
I would rather see that than us try and short it and then,
Right.
come the end of August,
So-
we're short.
When we get this written up for the intergovernmental agreement between Graham and the new attorney, we'll make sure that we are on the right page of what we're gonna be buying from them. If it's under and we don't need it, then we don't need it.
Yeah, that's
Right now,
fine.
it ain't bad. Is it bad down there on Maple Street? I don't believe. Is it bad anywhere? No, it's not bad at all.
Not yet.
We know how bad it can get down
Well,
here. You can
It's
go
only
like-
bad in my garage with the lights on.
Oh,
Well, we do
I'm
some
not over
stuff
the garage
around,
lights on.
so, I mean, I'm not gonna rely on these guys alone, so.
Okay, we're gonna have
So
to,
that's something that, again, is just, okay, so if we go back through this then, we've essentially covered most everything on the appropriation ordinance.
I believe so. And we'll
So,
have-
with the exception of the Rock the River, that I guess I still would like to get some clarity on
Yeah.
why you need 15,000 up front.
If you don't mind, I'd like to walk through it line item for line item and tell me what the
Sweet.
numbers are,
Okay, we'll have the treasurer take a look and see what he's got there for. what
whatever
we
your
talked
notes are,
about.
so if we don't have something
Real quick.
conflicting here. Like salaries, we went up,
Salaries are gonna go up.
and we talked about 3840 being appropriated from the disaster fund into salaries.
No,
No, only 1,200.
1,200.
No, there was 1,200 out of the disaster. Cleveland has a
Okay.
The Henry
disaster.
Well, I'm
County
just looking
Disaster
at-
Unit is no longer a functioning
Right.
unit.
Cleveland has its own
Okay.
disaster because there's a big flood.
So we aren't paying them the
If we have
$1,200
to pay the
anymore.
police or something to stand out here.
So what are we
or something, you
allocating
know.
for the salaries?
Because we've had a disaster fund that had to pay out of
If I
for
remember right, we were talking about just taking that 1,200 and moving it to salaries.
salary.
Okay, so it's
11-2 or whatever, something
11-2.
like that. That way
1,200 off the
there's
disaster
a
fund.
clean deal there, you just,
Just moved some money.
right.
Are we boring you back there? Got to dance these numbers around or it don't work.
okay. So
All legal beagle issues that we have to deal with. How about him? We boring him?
That's what I was asking.
There you
You want a soccer?
Take, yeah, take the bowl we've got, I think we've got a box of them.
those are probably 2012.
Somebody said they were all gone.
They may be.
Okay.
Okay, moving down.
Office expenses stays the same. Utilities stays the
That's
same.
not out of line at all, utilities or cleaning. Professional services, I'd just leave that alone. And then contributions is that we haven't been.
I know that we've done a few in the last couple of years that probably didn't amount to 800. You know, it was $100 here and $100 there, so,
Yeah, we leave it.
yeah.
Insurance has to go up. I'd make that 7,000 because last year was over 6. Do you remember?
Yeah, I do.
I
do
saw
know.
that bill.
Now
I
that you
go,
said that, I do remember
God.
back in December that we had to make that payment.
It's
and
going to 6,000. It used to be 4 or 5. And
Yeah.
IML has increased its rate pretty hard for the village.
Yep.
Building the grounds, that's not a big deal at
Well,
35,000.
wait a minute, you've added, if you're gonna add 2,000 to insurance, where are you gonna get that from?
Well, okay,
Equipment.
and that's where your other, what was that?
The equipment.
Your audit fund, if we drop that down to 500, you've got 1,000 there.
Okay,
And then, because we're gonna have to jump.
Yeah, but there's a
couple more.
large amount
Well,
of equipment.
and the street fund is kind of untouchable. But what we've got is your building and grounds scenario, which there's no reason we can't take money out of that, because I don't know what we paid out last year, but it was chump change for mowing the lots.
Right. The most I
I
think
mean,
we ever spent.
unfortunately, I think we should have paid the man the $1,000 or $1,200 for doing what he did, but it
Should be
didn't
doing
turn
it at
out
the
that
time
way.
he's doing it.
I know.
I known Dave for 20 years.
What do we
Well,
pay?
well, then we're gonna have to go back and pay Jeanette Waterman. 'cause
No,
she
well, and I'm not
Yeah.
saying that, I just,
Not going back. Let's
No.
Moving forward.
so, if we drop the building and grounds by, I don't know,
Oh, he needs 1,000.
Take 1,000 out of it.
yeah, whatever, yep.
Add it to the insurance. No, the insurance has to go to
Well,
7,000.
we've dropped the audit fund to 500, so we added 1,000 there, and if we take 1,000 out of the building and grounds to make it 34, then that gives us 7 for the insurance, which should cover it then, right? Am I understanding you guys correctly?
Yeah,
That's what I get.
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
You're gonna need 7,000 for that insurance. 6,500, whatever the hell it was last year, 6,200. It's gonna continue to climb.
Your printing and publication, what are we using that for
Printing and publication, that was, we put that in there for advertising and different issues like, say, yard sales and Rock the River, newspaper article, you
Are
know,
we using like the dumpsters for building and grounds kind of scenario?
I would.
Okay, and I'm, again, just making sure that we're, taking things out appropriately.
Well, when we line item here for next year, right now, we're in the middle of 2016.
Right.
So this won't be due to the comptroller until September of 16. Right now, we have to deal with whatever numbers we've got.
So,
50.
I mean, 500 sounds like it ought to be more than adequate for printing some flyers out.
Just so as you know, we are in fiscal 16 right now from April 1. So the fiscal year for Cleveland begins April 1 of that year. I'm not sure if you guys are aware, these guys are new here, so,
Yeah.
I know it.
Where I work, it's October 1.
well, you got October, well,
Yeah.
here it's, we are in fiscal 2016. And every number has to be reported to comptroller by September of 30th of 2016.
Miscellaneous,
Miscellaneous got brought down real hard, but it's not a big deal. I mean, you can put everything somewhere.
well, that's kind of my point.
You can put
We
everything
need
somewhere.
$400 in miscellaneous.
You can put everything somewhere, you know? Mike?
Yeah, like I said, with Shauna saying, okay, I'm real close on this. I'm real close to going over. Okay, I can transfer that, I can switch that and call it miscellaneous. And then we don't end up sending into the state and saying, I'm sorry, we have to
Well,
change
maybe-
our...
Maybe that's not an appropriate way of handling it, because we should probably make sure that we're not so close.
What is the definition of miscellaneous?
No argument there, but,
Well, and
$7,000.
you know,
I didn't know what to do with it.
yeah, it's,
well,
You know,
yeah, I
without a
mean, your point's
definition.
well taken,
well,
but yeah,
I'm just,
you know, if you're slightly above what you're actually gonna need, then you really shouldn't need it, but,
I'd rather see us take that and put it in something like the cleaning or whatever, and make sure the place gets cleaned up good every month. Because a lot of these things that we're talking about, building and grounds, that's the catch-all. So we really don't need a miscellaneous category.
Unless you got a definition for it, what we're gonna put in
I
there.
can't think of one other than Rick needs some pop in the refrigerator.
I don't drink pop, I drink beer.
So I would say drop it myself, but that's just me.
The miscellaneous?
Yeah.
I just leave a line item because it's already stuck there, so you have until June 30th to submit this according to Keller. So whatever we readjust,
Again, I'm just offering my opinion.
okay, now that you've mentioned Mr. Keller,
yes,
is that in salaries or is that in professional services?
I would say that's probably in the professional services
And I
category.
would tell you that probably that's low.
I would say it probably is. on
At
some of the-
$3,000, I don't have a bill
I don't either.
from the attorney yet.
I thought you guys said that the rate was the same as Gray's,
It is.
but his
There is
his travel
some
time
issues.
is what?
His travel time
His
is
travel
from
time,
Chicago
but
to
it
here.
isn't the same, it's just traveling time.
Traveling
it's
time or
$2.50
mileage?
It's $2.50 an hour for whatever.
Time?
Time.
Yeah, that's.
He hasn't
that's just-
submitted anything yet,
That's
so.
just-
So-
Yeah, no, I don't have anything yet, but that's my point,
Well,
is that,
Well, see, my point would be is that, look, we wouldn't pay Dave none because it was before.
Well, that, he volunteered, you know.
Well,
no,
and you know,
no,
that's,
and
that's
that
what
would-
I'm saying then too, so that,
you
okay.
know, no, and I'm not talking about before.
We're still gotta know
You know,
what a
but I'm
not to
talking
exceed or a
Well,
cost
that's-
it per hour is going
Yeah.
to be.
Right.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying, I
Exactly.
don't have a bill.
So if he's billing us for hours to drive
I
here,
don't think so.
Okay, we probably need to find out. If you're talking about the appropriations,
well,
probably
somebody
need to
better
find
get
out
that
what
cleared
we're
up
being
then,
billed
because
for
that,
and what's going on.
that could bust a lot of other stuff up here then.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, well, the
And that's my
original
point.
concept was when things were falling apart, and I approached them in Naperville, because they are Aints of Glenk, they know all that
Yeah,
stuff. I was worried about these
I
seating
understand.
arrangements. The
I
seating
understand.
arrangements were just way out of whack. And they spent some time, Aints of Glenk, trying to figure out what in the hell is seated and what ain't. because of Balaguer sitting here, this over here, who's sitting here.
Yep.
And so that it's all landed into what we have here today, all legal beagle, because of everything that
Yep.
happened.
My concern is just where it's gonna go, and if the money is there to pay it. 'Cause I can't pay it if I don't
Well, I
have the money
would,
there.
I would like to err on the short side and then tell him, gee, thanks, but we'll see if we can get by without you for a while.
This here really wasn't enough, because what Graham Lee was, if he.
He was charging
turning in-
$250, he was charging $250 a month.
I know that.
He didn't charge us extra
But there
for
was-
anything else.
There was ordinances and things that was charged, so that he went over already.
We were in a situation where we needed an attorney
Right.
at that caliber. Just
We had to
because
have
of
a
what was
higher
happening.
caliber of a municipal attorney.
Well, I would say that even if you doubled that, I would be hesitant to want to go that far with it.
It's just a line item.
I don't understand, but that also gives him the opportunity to see that too.
Well, certainly.
It's just,
There's also an amendment after the fact, so.
it's just a line item that I need to explain if we're over it.
Right. There's always an amendment. If you
That's
can't,
why I
if you
said
don't
when
want
we
to
were
change
doing
it.
this the last
This-
time, it can be amended.
The equipment at $65,000, you can throw $65,000 on that, the same thing, so.
Yeah.
You know.
Since we're gonna wipe half of that.
We're gonna wipe half that out, we might as well go ahead and do that. Well, so, numbers are only numbers right now, we do not want to
Again,
spend
I
more.
think if you show a lawyer that you've got that much money in the account for him, he's gonna find a way to get it.
Yeah, numbers only numbers, but whatever you guys got decide to spend, I've gotta try and figure out how to explain.
Right, certainly. The first explanation, they said that when they've seen stuff like this before and trying to sort out different seating arrangements to make sure they're corrected. And they said that you'll find an initial higher level of legal expenses, and it'll smooth out towards as the months go by, and then you figure things out. Right now, it was chaotic. You know, we had to figure something. I couldn't believe it was happening. So
You're
we-
saying 250 for Graham.
Yeah.
And on an average, it was, say a meeting, hour,
Yeah.
hour and a half. So if we went, say 2.5, I mean, and we have these 12 times a year, we're looking at $9,000.
But no, he won't be here all the time. He sends
Okay.
associate to the contract that I sent, or the engagement agreement, was that his associates are lower levels to $100 for the meeting. So and then they'll come from Naperville, stuff like that. We needed him now, because
I'm not disagreeing with what you did per se. What I'm saying is that if you start throwing big numbers into the appropriations, he's gonna look at it and he's gonna see how much of it he can get.
And I understand that.
Okay.
He is a very busy man. He said, I'm not gonna be here
Okay.
all the time. I'm just trying to get this.
Yeah, but even if he's sending somebody else down here,
No, the numbers are lower. The engagement agreement's lower.
So we've got to have some way of watching the watchdog.
you know,
Right.
that's why I would say I would rather see us do this on a lowball deal and
Well, then we can
have to
always.
reappropriate down the road.
As we get further down into it, we can always reappropriate. Yeah, it's not a big deal.
That's-
I don't see that being a big deal.
There is nothing in the system that says that we can't do that.
Right.
I mean, if we want to change this appropriation every month, we can.
Well, we have,
We don't want to do it, but we
the
can.
formal one can be changed
Correct.
before June 30th,
Yes.
because these numbers are wrong.
Oh, I'm not disputing that, Rick. I'm not disputing.
Now, we can leave it at 190,000 and just move money around from where it was at. But in the meantime, we have to do something to change it now for the stuff that we already know is in front of us.
So again, I'd like to ask about the Rock River deal.
Okay, yes. we'll
Why do
move
you
on.
think you need $15,000 for it?
Well, Gary's the one that put it in there, and we would spend.
Well, let's just back up.
We would spend 12,000 on bands and beer or whatever, and then we had to say that we spent that. We never used to do it until they,
Okay.
I don't know, he's the one that came up with it.
Oh, okay, so what do you think we need?
I would say go ahead and stick it back where it was at, because there's plenty of numbers there to dance around. Because we're not gonna spend that much money to do
Okay,
it,
so why would you appropriate that much more then?
because it was part of what the village does with its park fund. It was strange to me too, I didn't understand it, and
So-
Gary's the one that shoved it through, and I
So
agree.
what kind of sponsorship are we looking at?
I don't have anything at this moment. I mean, I got people that are sponsoring, but I haven't gotten that far with it.
Okay, and I guess I'm gonna do this just because it'll probably stir some shit up, but you and Mike both sat over there at his kitchen table with Jim White and I. Well, last times the four of us actually sat together, and we had this discussion about if you're going to expend municipal funds, and you are planning and plotting and figuring out and all this kind of stuff, you need to report to someone what you're doing and what you expect to do. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Right, that's
And
why
we
we're
chased
here.
this for the whole time of this, and that's, in my opinion, why this fell apart.
Okay, well, that's your opinion.
And I'm entitled to that.
Yes, you are.
However, Rick, if you're gonna appropriate $15,000, you still
Just leave it
need to account for everything that you're doing.
We did. Over the 8 years.
Is that
we did.
done after the fact, once it's all over with?
No, they need to come and figure out how you're going about doing this. Make
Okay.
requests for, have the information set up front. It's not just a budget scenario. If you're going to expend, and I'll just throw figures out, $100 for cases of beers, you need to come to the village board then and ask for that money to be spent on that. Not just, here's $15,000 in the checking account, and you guys can just write checks until,
Okay, well, if we
I see
did
your
that, then
point.
we wouldn't have one. That's why we haven't had it. For 4 years, we haven't had nothing because it takes too much time to go over and figure out.
no, Rick,
you know.
it doesn't take too much time. It's called accountability.
Okay, we'll have a meeting once a week then.
Well, and you guys need to then report to the village board about what you're planning, plotting, whatever, how you're doing this. Because that's what this is all about.
I'll be
This
responsible.
is why I said this.
I will
to
be
you.
responsible for that. Right now, we're in the very early stages of creating the product. And there's a lot of people that are
To
interested.
just say, here's $15,000 and
No.
we'll let you know how it comes out at the end. I don't agree with that concept at all.
Because there's so many, all these aspects of what we did.
No, the last
You
time
don't-
this
We don't
happened,
take money,
well,
we just make money.
no, it was,
Yeah, I
it
know
was
what you're
that
talking
simple.
about. You're talking about a zero-based budget,
Yeah,
which means that you need it. Please explain why.
yeah, exactly.
And that's just basically a spreadsheet that tells us that we've got allocation for beer, allocations
Yeah.
for amenities, and it just takes a few minutes to punch that out. And basically all it is you take the $15,000 and you divvy it out across those line items, just like
And-
we're doing right here.
And that's what I'm asking for, but it also needs to be in a documented format so that this isn't just, here's this separate checkbook and a couple of guys are just signing checks.
And you'll know more once we have the further conversations with the sponsors or whatever.
We don't.
They ought to be able-
Jim's got a lot of good sponsorships that came up in there that it wasn't even money. We would raffle off TV sets and things, and the last year that we did it, we made right over $3,000 in raffles. And that money come in from the sponsors, but the sponsor didn't have any money. Because it was a TV, you know. So how do you account for that? He gave us this, and we made that.
You have to account for it
But it was-
somewhere along the line.
we had to
I mean, you
account
know,
for it.
you
We had to-
sold how many raffle tickets? You know, it's just like the beer tickets.
Yeah.
You know, you're gonna go buy $5,000 worth of
let
beer.
me ask you
There
this.
better be $5,000 worth of beer tickets
Since
sold
you have
then.
a lot of questions,
Correct.
would you like to help with Rocky River this year then?
If I can make the time available for it, I will, Rick.
Okay, then when we start up, and I
but
know that
I'm-
you want to help.
I'm explaining to you as what I feel my position as a trustee on this village board is that I'm asking for accountability for expenditure of village resources.
So I guess from my standpoint is you take the $15,000 and we appropriate into it right now, but we have to have the accountability
Yes.
we can
Of where
get
the
the
money's
number.
going.
But we just set a little bylaw after the fact is, this is what we want. I don't think that's too hard to
Right.
do.
That's what I want.
Probably about get it from the checkbook.
Well, and
Probably about getting
and again, but you can't just turn a couple guys loose with the checkbook. If it's gonna be spent, it has to be approved by the village board.
Well, we might as well not even have it then.
I'll agree with that. by the way.
Well, then maybe you shouldn't, Rick, because if you're not willing to be accountable.
It's
to
already
that
underway,
regard-
Leo.
Yep.
Okay. You guys do whatever you think you need to do.
Leo, I agree with that.
Yeah,
You guys do whatever you think you need to
that's
do.
not a problem, Leo.
Yeah, I know
See you at the
will.
Rock the River meeting. We'll complicate it even more.
I'm sorry, what's
I
that?
said we'll complicate it even more.
Well,
Complicated.
sometimes life is complicated, Rick, and you have to deal with it.
I will deal with it, and I'll make sure that we're accountable for it.
That's all I'm
We're
asking
planning on
you
trying to
for.
put money
That's
into
what
the
these
park fund.
citizens elected me for.
We're trying to put money into the park fund, Leo.
Yeah?
So we're hung up on this one item. You got $15,000,
I don't see why we can't do it. I don't see where it's gonna be very difficult if it pleases people.
Look, he's been like this for 10 years over at
Okay.
Rock the River.
Or that, or that.
We pour money into the bank, we did all this work, and he sits over there and he comes back in here and raises hell. Every freaking meeting. I don't have a problem trying to cut it up and make sure that we think we need to do this, we think we need to do that. But that park fund money that's in there now was created by
I know,
us.
you made the money.
It wasn't created by him. That money's still sitting in there because they couldn't figure out what to do with it for 4 years. So the money's there. Voila, we make Rock the River. Moving on.
I'd say that if you're coming back and giving the village a profit, that it,
He doesn't understand it. I don't have a problem trying to figure out how to tell him this, but if I go over and buy a bunch of t-shirts for Rock the River off that park fund, okay, well, what is this? What's that for? What's it say on it? How much you gonna charge for them? You know,
well, if he tries to micromanage after the fact,
he's trying to micromanage it, you know.
and all I need is just a line item. T-shirts are gonna
Right.
cost this much, beer's gonna cost this much, and we haven't spent the whole $15,000 yet,
yep,
but it's still documented.
yeah, you're just documenting what
That's all
you're
it is.
spending.
I would just
a
move,
spreadsheet.
right now,
One
to
on-
move $15,000 back out of
That's
something
all we
like
needed to do
equipment.
tonight, was
Yeah.
just that.
Move 10,000 back to it that they took out of it.
Right now, it
I
was
don't know
set
why the hell they
5.
thought he needed to do that, and they went over and did that, and jammed it through here, so we have to deal with this crap.
That's usually after the
10,000 to
fact.
what now?
To the, Rock the River fundraiser,
Yep.
so we can spend 15,000
Oh,
if
all
we
right.
have to.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Take it out of
The
equipment
equipment, yeah.
and into,
And that's where they took it from.
So you're putting 10,000, so it's 55,000 now.
Yeah, but it's not like you're,
Right.
I'd say probably the bigger point here is the 15,000 is gonna be given back. And then some.
Mhm.
And that needs
He
to be
has
on
been
the
this
record.
way for several Rocky Rivers. He doesn't understand any of it. It's impossible. You can't explain it to him. He doesn't
Yes.
work, he doesn't ever works on it.
Okay.
I say we just basically give us a spreadsheet and that makes it all countable.
Yeah, we'll be working on that right now. It's so early, in the early stages of trying to get this done. So, are we done with the appropriations expenses?
I'm done.
Mike?
I'm good.
All right. Police contract that is up, and if you guys are all good with the $600 a month we're paying, I don't have that in front of me here. I thought I did. We're gonna have to get an intergovernmental agreement on that. And where are you guys at with the, hi Mike, where are you guys at with the, Kelowna police? Mike,
I got that tree out of the water down at Brent's. Pulled all that out down
okay
there.
Mike, we're having a meeting here.
Okay.
Fill that out.
I'll fill it out and bring it back to you. I ain't doing it tonight, I'm tired of it.
I'm tired. Here it is.
So what are you thinking with the police fund?
Well, where does it say on here? Police fund. 12,000's awful high.
I'd never even thought we ever even needed it. They could call county.
I agree, but in the meantime, we're in the middle of this next year with the Kelowna Police. So we have expired the contract with them, and we're gonna have to vote on this here pretty soon. They didn't even send us anything. This is what Shauna came up with.
I would be game for just doing away with it when the time comes.
Well, it was up in April. James?
We're paying right now for 2 trips down here a day.
3,
Three.
$600 a month.
If we don't put something in there, what would be the end result of, we have another issues with people that here in the village?
We probably,
Well, it's like he said, you can go to county, but we haven't contacted the county to see if they would charge us either, so I don't.
yeah, you could call county and say, well, you know, what would you charge us if we needed you to come in?
Mike must have a comment on that.
The
Mike, got
thing
anything to
about
say
the police
that?
department is you
Would they
want
charge
to,
us, Mike?
If I remember correctly, we talked to them one time about it before, and yeah, they will charge.
the whole idea of calling the police department is you want somebody here now.
Okay,
Yeah, a lot of times I do believe county, they'll go out and send cologne or whoever they want.
they will, yes, they will do that.
But there's a cost to
County,
the
yeah,
village.
county sometimes is, 45 minutes from here and,
Yeah, but really, what are we paying for a cop to come down here for 3 times a day to look at the flowers? I mean, there's nothing happening.
I thought the same thing, to reduce that, but I don't know